One of the most unpleasant things I've ever experienced was getting misunderstood. At times, when you feel like you've done everything right and your intentions were sincere, there is still a possibility of being rejected. Many of us tend to get frustrated when we fail to earn the trust of someone we look up to, especially at times when we are not given a chance to even explain ourselves. The harsh truth about life is that sometimes people will deem their subjective judgment more credible due to the discomfort and the time-consuming nature of trying to see a situation from multiple perspectives. And no matter how much effort one may put into being nice, making sure to accommodate everyone's needs, there will always be a point of friction. In fact, with such mindset, one will be at the risk of facilitating this very friction through the apparent fear of judgment, exposing their weaknesses to the outside world, and therefore signifying their lack of self-confidence. Ironically, instead of seeking to find the certainty within, we think it is easier to seek it in other people, which inevitably leads to a repetitive cycle of frustration when it comes down to the inevitable nature of conflict. Being terrified of judgment, we not only disconnect from the present, but also lose touch with ourselves by setting unrealistic expectations of what life should be, running away from something that is there to help us grow. And yes, there is a point in misunderstandings. There is so much value in being judged and misunderstood. And when one is fully certain in their integrity, it becomes very easy to see the lesson. I feel like one of the most frustrating things that one can ever experience is getting misunderstood. Getting misunderstood by somebody who you look up to. Getting misunderstood by somebody who you once liked and you were trying to earn their trust with all of your abilities, showcasing all of your skills to them. But then there was a tiny situation that triggered a certain reaction in that person, and that reaction led to them judging you. The frustration happens when you feel like you have done nothing wrong. You have already analyzed the situation from all of the possible angles. You've already looked at the situation from all of the possible perspectives, learned all of your lessons, and yet you've done your best to prove yourself to that person. You've done your best to try to have a conversation with them, but they just don't want to listen. They've already made their own judgment in their head, and you are in a position of a person to be blamed for this mistake that you supposedly made. There is no possible way for you to earn their trust again. And the only thing that you have left to do is to accept the situation, is to accept their perspective, the perspective of that person who puts you in a position of somebody who is to blame. You have nothing else to do. And that evokes a strong frustration in you. I'm sure we've all been in a situation like that, where we think of ourselves as very adaptable people. We think of ourselves as somebody who is willing to go for a compromise any day at any time. We think that we are able to listen to any criticism naturally, but when it happens so that we are faced with a person who gives us so much criticism for something that we didn't even do, we take it all in and then we try to build trust with that person. We try to go and ask them, what was wrong? What can I do better next time? But they just don't want to listen. No. Oftentimes, we try to change people, even in implicit ways. And what I think is ironic about it is that those who think that they are not trying to change people, they are still trying to change people. And I am this kind of person. I always tell myself, I'm not trying to change anyone. Like, anyone can live their own life and I don't care. But we all care about each other deep inside because we are on the same planet, we live in the same world, and we are the same species. So how can we possibly detach ourselves from each other's business fully? I do not think it is ever possible, especially when you are a good human being, and especially when every day you consciously try to become better and kinder and more understanding towards everybody, which leads you to helping a lot of people. This becomes very frustrating when somebody doesn't want to listen. And what you do not realize, or what I haven't realized for the longest time, is that I was still trying to change people in some way. I still wanted people to see my perspective because I thought that if I can see everybody's perspective, I thought that if I'm open to any opinion and if no judgment can ever obstruct my way, no judgment can ever obscure my path, then everybody should act the same. We tend to think that if we do good deeds for other people, they should reciprocate back with kindness. But what we do not realize is that our perspective is very subjective. Whatever mindset you have built for yourself, whatever ways you decided to live this life, whatever path you have decided to take, this is still your own personal thing. And nobody is even aware of that. And nobody is obliged to change because you decided to make a change within yourself. This period in my life, I was forced to remember that I have built my own bubble where I was living this life, trying to help other people, trying to hear everybody. I realized that there were so many tests placed in my way where people would misunderstand me or even hate me for my openness. Because I feel like what the world wanted to show me is that, yes, your perspective is nice, but nobody will follow on because people live in their own bubbles. People will misunderstand you. And I think that especially when you're trying to be nice to people, especially when you're making a conscious effort to be open to any opinion of any sort, a lot of people can wrongly mistake this as a quality of a weak person. But in reality, it takes strength to be understanding. It takes so much strength and so much effort to understand the position of other people. But a lot of people wrongly take you for a weak person. And so they judge you, they misunderstand you, they place you in a position of somebody who can take it all in and never fight back. But do we need to fight back? Before we get more philosophical, or before we dive into the psychology of craving to be understood, craving the validation of other people, I would like to tell you a personal story. I have a confession to make. I had been a people pleaser in the past for the longest time. And the irony of it all is, as I said, I would never admit it to myself. I would look at other people who were maybe more of people pleasers and I would judge them. I would quietly judge them. But the point is, all the time we judge those qualities in other people that we have in ourselves, or which we once had in ourselves. You know, I think I didn't want to see the reality because also I come from a culture where people are praised for straightforwardness. From the childhood, every person you encounter, they're straightforward to you. They tell you what they tell you what they think about what you're wearing, about what you're studying, about what kind of person you are, your beliefs and everything. It gets to the excessive point where rumors and spreading false judgment around people is so normalized. I was always a straightforward person, and whenever I didn't like somebody, I would voice it out. I would create a communication point with another person and I would tell them that, sorry, I do not like this sort of behavior that you're doing towards me, so maybe we can work on that, maybe you can change something about yourself so that I change something about myself, and so we live in harmony with one another. And you might hear me out right now and ask me, how is this a people pleasing? But the thing is, it would take me such a long time to get to that point, such a long time to get over this threshold of my patience and finally say something to the person. And a lot of times people would use me for this quality, especially at work when I was getting clients early on. I would agree to work at a much lower rate just because I wanted to avoid the discomfort of discussion that would supposedly involve some comfortable elements, right? An argument of some sort, an intellectual discussion of some sort where I would have to explain myself, where I would have to put excessive effort into trying to make a person understand that I cannot lower down my rate because I have always been working at a certain rate and there is no way I can lower it down just for their specific case because it makes no sense. And I would think that if I manage to avoid this point of friction, then nothing could possibly go wrong in the future. But again, the irony of it all is that the more we lower down our standards, the more we open ourselves up to the judgment and misunderstanding. I did not realize that. I was living in an idealistic universe where I thought that if I avoid this scandal, then there will be no next point of friction. But the fact of it is, it created even more points of friction. It created even more problems. People would start pushing my boundaries. People would start testing me. How far can he really go? I've given you everything. I've given you this and that. And now do this for me. Do this job for me for free because I've given you that thing. But the fact that that person decided to give me that thing for free, the fact that they didn't even offer that to me, they just decided to make a gift to me. And now they're using this as an argument as if they've given me so much, even though it was their conscious choice to give away the things that they wanted to give away. Now, because of this argument, I feel like I am a guilty one and I feel like I have to do the things for free for them. We need to understand that our beliefs, the system of beliefs that we live in, our perspective on life, whatever we do to other people is only down to us. It is our conscious decision. And so if you want to be a virtuous human being, you should first think, why are you doing this? Are you being a virtuous human being for yourself or for the sake of getting the recognition or validation of other people? Because if you're doing the latter, then you will get treated like shit. So anyway, in the past, people kept pushing my limits and I kept agreeing to that until at one point I realized that I need to change something about myself. And perhaps it is better to be courageous enough to go and explore that territory of judgment, to go and be firm on establishing my boundaries at least once or twice or 3 times, or however much it takes. And if the person doesn't understand, that I can simply use my traits where I can understand anybody from any perspective, and I would try to have empathy for that person, but at the same time, I would leave the situation, because sometimes we cannot prove our point of view to other people. And that is the harsh truth about life as well. We establish our boundaries, we do everything right. We just follow the textbook, you just follow all of the tips that I give you in this podcast, but the person still tells you straight in your face that they don't care, and they gaslight you into thinking that you're in the wrong, that they've given you so much and you've done nothing for them, even though you know for a fact, you have it written down in your journal that you've done everything for that person, for them to be good to you, but they're not good to you. So sometimes it is better to leave. And that is what I discovered. The opportunities that we think will last forever, the things that we think we should cling on to because that is the best we can get, all of these beliefs prevent us from leaving the situations when we really need to leave. When we really need to say to the person, okay, I have tried to explain my point of view to you so many times, but if you're not willing to listen, then unfortunately, I have to make this hard decision and leave the situation for the good of both of us, for both of us to grow and to develop naturally, going separate ways. But why do we crave social acceptance? Why is it so hard for us to exist in our own set of beliefs and be calm with whatever everybody else is thinking? Why can I just not step outside, being so confident in the standards and the morals that I live by, that whatever I'm being told and however much I'm hated for my beliefs, I know that my set is right for me. And I also am aware that it is very subjective and that there is no way I can prove that these are the right morals to live by. However, I'm so confident that nobody can sway by my judgment, and no judgment of myself can ever make me feel a certain way that can be deemed as unpleasant. But what if I tell you that we can live this way? And in this podcast, I will share with you the tips how I had finally achieved the state of equilibrium, how I had finally managed to live in the state of pure calmness. And whatever I'm being told, yes, I have a certain reaction to this that is going on inside me, the emotion that arises, that emerges. However, I never let this emotion control me and determine my future actions. Before that, let's dive deep into psychology. My guess is, or maybe not my guess, but a socially accepted theory, is that we crave social acceptance because of an evolutionary perspective. And I always try to refer to evolutionary psychology because I think it is very useful for us to understand the way we used to live in the past, the way we used to function in the past, the way we used to think in the past, and the way our brains operated in order to understand the current present picture of reality. And so we used to live in tribes exactly. And that time, loneliness was seen as a sign of death, as a sign that person was ready to die. You could not be in solitude. That used to be considered as something very bizarre and a signifier of a very fragile mental state of a person, of a very lost person. You could never be in solitude. People had no technologies. People had to work together 24/7 in order to survive. Everything was done together. With the emergence of new technologies and with the advancements that we have made throughout history, we have become more and more self-sufficient. There is less and less danger in a modern world when we step outside, and there is more and more comfort. And therefore, our society have grown more self-sufficient and individualistic due to the rise of social media and AI. At the same time, our brains and our bodies were so clever to adapt to these ways of thinking. And so in a way, I think it is a brave claim, but I think that we need less social interactions nowadays compared to what our, say, ancestors used to need. We're still social creatures and we still need communication and interactions with other people. But the fact of it all is, we are more self-sufficient right now. We need more alone time, we need more time with our thoughts, because now we have discovered that in fact, self-introspection, journaling, and all of those things are useful for us, because the more one understands themselves, the more solid base they have the more confidence they have. And confidence is a crucial thing here in this whole argument. When you're confident in yourself, when you're so confident in the person you are, in your own beliefs, no judgment, no external judgment, no misunderstanding can sway you by. Because when you're confident fully in yourself, and this can be achieved, the state is absolutely possible to achieve. When you're purely confident, what do you care about what other people say? But then, of course, you're asking me, how do you build this confidence? I used to be confused with this question for a very long time. I would always think that the confidence of oneself should depend on the achievements that that person has made. I would always think that I need to think about all the things that I have achieved throughout my lifetime. I got this medal, I did a half marathon, I have this amazing job that I'm grateful for, I earned this and this amount of money, I have perfect friends, this is why I should be confident. But I would always discover that there was something that I was lacking. There was still a sense of uncertainty. And I would never have full confidence, and at the same time, I would convince myself that full confidence can never be achieved. I would think that this is some illusory concept that we are fed into by all of those gurus so that we buy their courses, learn some bullshit, and move on with our life. But in fact, full confidence can be achieved and can be sustained throughout most of our lives. And what I discovered is that confidence should not be built based on your materialistic possessions or achievements or any of the things in a material world which one can see for a fact with their eyes. It should be built on your devotion to your morals, and it should be built on your personal sense of what a good person you are. The more you give to others, the stronger you have the sense of who you are. You know the people who you should associate yourself with. You know the things that you like in other people. And you know for a fact that your purpose in this life, in some sort of way, is connected with helping other people. If you're convinced, if you're purely certain that you're a kind person and you have a value in this world, and by the way, all of this sense of purpose, all of this sense of value comes from being a kind person in a certain way. Because if your job is to do purely with earning money, you will never be fulfilled fully. Trust me, this is true. I've been through that. If you have a strong sense that you're a kind person, your confidence is full. You have pure certainty that whatever happens to you is a test of this very confidence that you have within yourself. And at any opportunity, when somebody disagrees with you, you can take this situation and see it from a perspective that this is a test. This is in fact a situation created by the universe and given to you so that you can strengthen your morals, so that you can once again assure yourself that I have done nothing wrong. I'm not telling you that you should be a narcissist and always tell yourself that I've done nothing wrong. But in this particular case, at least you can know that I'm a good person. Every day, I make a conscious effort to be a kind person. Every day I give to others. Every day I think of the ways how I can make this world a better place. And so if somebody misunderstands me, instead of being angry with them or trying to change them, reverse this thinking, and you can in fact have empathy for that person and understand that they haven't yet gotten to that point where they see me for who I am. Or maybe they will never get to that point. But there is really no point in trying to change people, because it is all about you in the end. You were born this way, in this body, with this set of beliefs, into the religion you have, into the family that you have, for a certain reason. And you were born this exact way, or you were made this exact way in order to make your unique contribution to the wider scale of things, to the wider world. And once you realize that, and once you work on your individuality and try to use it in a certain way in order to help other people and in order to spread this spark that you have within yourself and help other people by utilizing that, nothing can sway you by your confidence. And at the same time, this misunderstanding that you get from other people becomes something ordinary, because you realize that in fact, when one is certain in their own beliefs, when one is certain what they're doing with their life and that they are the kind person, there are more and more tests on their way, because the universe operates in this way. I feel like the universe is always trying to push our limits. Once you are at a certain level, there can never be a point of stopping. There can never be a point of regression, because there is a purpose in you being alive. If you had already hypothetically completed your purpose, then you would be dead right now. If you're alive by now, if you're alive right now, then it means that there is a further point of growth. There is a further state that you need to evolve towards, that you need to reach. And after that state, there might be another state, or you will die. But regardless of saying this, the universe is always pushing you to the next level. And pushing you to the next level exactly involves the discomfort of being misunderstood and of being judged. In the end, every day you're given an opportunity to grow and evolve. And every day you're surrounded with a set of opportunities. And it is down to you to look at it a certain way. You can look at it and think of yourself as a victim of life. You can look at it and think that I have done everything in my power to be a good person, but since nobody understands me, maybe I should switch my perspective and be a dick to everybody. Or by this point, you failed. The test is failed. The whole thing, all of the efforts that you have put towards being a good person, it's all vanished. It's gone. One test was enough to erase all of this. But if you take another perspective and see it as one of those days or one of those situations where you're just pushed to your limits in order to reach another state, in order to become even more compassionate and more understanding towards other people, then you will get so many blessings in your life. Trust me. Because once we start seeing misunderstandings and conflict as something inevitable, is something totally inescapable, unfixable, something that will always exist out there, and something which we accumulate even more of, the better we become, the higher levels we reach, then we can achieve the state of gratitude and be grateful for all of the conflicts that come into our way. We can be grateful for the conflict because in the end, what it does to you, it shows you your triggers. All of those uncomfortable situations and all of that judgment that you get externally from other people can help you see your past trauma, can help you see your past influences, the things that you were triggered by. And if you take it with gratitude, if you take every conflict with this very understanding that it is in fact the universe trying to elevate you to the next level, trying to make you even a better person, prepare you for better things, then you can see the triggers within yourself. And by working on them, you can become a better person. If you fully learn your lesson, it only comes back to you so that you can become a stronger person. And so that you can then share your wisdom with other people. And that is the beauty of all this. If you're given conflict in your life, if you're constantly misunderstood by other people, then perhaps try to adapt this perspective that I'm given this for a reason. There is a reason why I have this set of lessons. Do not compare yourself to anybody. Do not think that, oh my God, why is my friend having such an easy life and I have such a difficult path? Every day I have hatred from people and every day I'm getting misunderstood. Well, first of all, you can never know fully what that person has in their own head, what sort of life they're living. It's just arrogant of you to think that you can fully know somebody and you can fully evaluate the state of their life and then compare it to your own life. But even regardless of this, there is a reason why you're given this set of lessons. We can transform the pain, the judgment that we get into the strength in ourselves. All of it is given to us in order for us to strengthen our beliefs, in order for us to see that perhaps in some ways I wasn't strong on this or that moral. Perhaps in some ways I wasn't sure that I needed to believe this, I needed to follow a certain path. But once I'm given a misunderstanding, in that person, I can see the qualities that I once had in myself, or I can see the qualities that I have in myself right now. And if I do not work on myself, if I do not make a conscious effort every day to be empathetic towards others, to be compassionate and to be understanding, if I do not make an effort to improve constantly and to elevate myself, to take those lessons and elevate constantly, step up, then there is a chance I could become even worse. And that is the point of disagreements. That is the point of arguments, to develop our patience, the crucial qualities that we have in life. Because think of all of the people who have this quality of patience. They are at the top. They are at the top. And exactly, there is a distinction between having your boundaries and having patience and just letting it all slide. Because it can get to people pleasing and it can get uncomfortable. I think the distinction is people pleasing is all about avoiding the discomfort. It is when you live in the fear of being judged every day. And it is about you succumbing to the control of your emotions. It is about you being afraid of your emotions that in fact exist outside of you. People pleasing is not a good option to choose in life if you want to achieve something, because you need to be firm with people. But at the same time, you gotta be patient in life. So try to understand the perspective of another person and try to evaluate when you get a misunderstanding, when you're involved in a conflict, try to evaluate if that person is doing it from an egocentric perspective, purposefully not meeting your needs, even though they are aware of your needs, which in this case you gotta leave, or if they've done it by mistake. And if it was done by a mistake or purely out of their own inattentiveness to whatever you said, then you can try to repeat your boundaries and be firmer this time. Be strong on what you want from people, because whatever you give away to the world, you will get back. I feel like a lot of this testing ground emerges in our relationships, especially romantic relationships. And this is not arbitrary. Our romantic relationships are our closest connections. These are the people that we trust fully. These people are very special for us. And there are different needs to be met in every romantic relationship. There are 3 types of needs that I have distinguished: physical needs, spiritual needs, and emotional needs. Emotional needs are about understanding each other, learning to control your emotions, learning to not take your emotions take power over you, and so on. But spiritual needs is not only about spirituality. It is about the compromise. It is about willingness to listen and willingness of understanding that we are all a part of this ecosystem. This is what I call spiritual needs. It is about compromise, compassion, all of those elevated emotions, reaching those higher states, understanding the person from those higher states instead of operating on your emotions based on the things that you're getting influenced by from the external world. So when our needs are not met, we get frustrated and we get into a misunderstanding with a person. And then we communicate what is not met. I'm so upset that you're not looking after yourself, or that time you were angry with me and you shouted at me, and I don't think that it was the right reaction because it was really not my fault and there was no reason for you to shout. Whatever it is, we communicate with the person. And there are 2 perspectives to take when a person doesn't really want to listen to us, which creates a misunderstanding. Let's consider both cases separately. The person doesn't want to listen to us, a close person, a person in a relationship. So then we try again and again and again and again and again. And we say to them, and they don't want to listen, and they don't want to listen, we don't want to listen. We create this low vibration of desperation. We desperately want to change another person. Another person just doesn't want to listen. There are 2 ways to go: to leave this or to even work on this even more. Do you think working on this even more would be helpful? If the person didn't listen to you 1,000 times, why would they listen to you again? Do you think that a miracle should happen and suddenly they will give you another chance? They don't want to listen. They don't want to take a perspective. How about you give it time and let things go for a while? And I think this is a reasonable statement to make when a person is close to you. When you have something special with a person, when you've been through so much stuff together, there is no point in either giving up on them fully or trying to make them adapt to you fully, because both perspectives are egocentric. We just do it to avoid the discomfort in both cases. When we give things time, when we have this very certainty that I talked about, I am a good person and every day I work on my good deeds, on being virtuous, then this is a test for my virtue. This is a test for my virtuous character. This is a test for how much I can handle, how understanding can I be towards another person. And perhaps they need time. Perhaps they are going through something. And perhaps they do not want to change. And it is really the question of making me change. It could be a case. But sometimes it takes for us to be courageous and leave, and then not even blame ourselves, to live without the feeling of guilt, this very corrosive feeling that eats us from the inside, that convinces us that that very scandal that we provoked, we are in the wrong here. No. Stating your boundaries, you're never in the wrong. If you do it in an exactly polite way, if you do not shout at another person, if you never let your emotions take control of you, and if instead you're very, very devoted to your boundaries, you can just voice it out and see if the person is truly not willing to listen, and especially if that person you think is not worthy of your time. Therefore, this judgment creates another counter judgment that you're not worthy of their time, because whenever you think that somebody is not worthy of your time, the opposite is also true. You can then understand that in fact, this misunderstanding is another blessing in disguise, because this is a sign for both of us that we do not belong in each other's life. And now it is time for us to leave, go our separate ways, be grateful for this understanding and grow. And maybe at some point in time, we'll get back together, and maybe we will not. But it was a great test for my morals. And by leaving, I became stronger. Sometimes disagreements emerge in our lives in order to make us aware that we are looking for perfection, and in order to make us seize this very search for perfection. Oftentimes, without even realizing it ourselves, we put out crazy demands of another person. We expect them to be a certain way while not even having half of those qualities in ourselves. And then we get so frustrated when our needs are not met. But we forget to ask ourselves how imperfect we are. Sometimes those very disagreements in our life are the sign that we need to work on some of the qualities that we have in ourselves first, and that we need to go back to the source and reconnect with it. And you can interpret this phrase however you want, spiritually, scientifically. But what I mean by that is that we should reconnect with ourselves. We are the source of ourselves. We are the source of our own emotions. We are the inception of ourselves, of our identity, of everything that we have around us. Our whole perception, the whole way we see the world is dependent on our personality, on the person we are, or on what we have inside us. And so once we get back to ourselves, once we reach out to our own selves for help and say, I do not understand this situation. I don't know why this keeps happening. This pattern keeps happening in my life. These misconceptions that people build around me, I don't understand this. How can we solve this? Ask this yourself first. Stop seeking validation externally and stop trying to act in ways in which you expect to get approval of other people, because this will never happen. And life will keep giving you the situations to make you understand that everything is fleeting and people will come and go no matter what person it is. People will come and go from your life, because the only person that you should be fully devoted to, fully 100% of the time, is yourself. You should never abandon yourself, and you should never let the guilt linger in you for a long time, because guilt is there as a temporary signifier that something is off, and you should take it and work on it. You should highlight the qualities within yourself that you do not like and work on them in order to not let the guilt persist, because guilt is supposed to be within you temporary. All of those emotions of low vibration should be within you temporarily for short periods of time. And when we let those emotions linger inside us for a long time, those feelings of misunderstanding, those feelings of disagreement with another person, those feelings of trying to be desperate to understand why another person dislikes you, we are disconnecting from the source. We are disconnecting from ourselves, and things start going even worse and worse for us, because those situations are given to us, all of those misunderstandings are given to us in order for us to realize that the thing that we should be fully devoted to is our own personal introspective work, is our devotion to the source, to ourselves, to the person that we are. Because once you work on all the aspects that you want to see in another person within yourself, the energy of you, the energy that you create around yourself, will match the energy of that person who you want to attract in your life, will match the energy of the situation that you want to attract in your life. But you need to reach the state of full certainty that can only be reached through difficult situations, because the more difficult situations we have in our life, the more room there is for growth and for reaching this divine state of pure certainty, from which if you operate, you know for a fact that you're a good person and nothing can ever sway you by. Nothing can ever destroy you fully, because whenever the emotion arises, you just pick yourself up and try again and move on. Sometimes in the past, or oftentimes, I dealt with quite a few narcissists, and those people lack the crucial quality of empathy. You should just understand that those people frequently do not have empathy within them. They do not have empathy within them to understand your situation. And with those people, it is crucial to realize that it is all about control to them. It is all about making sure that you're in their zone of control. It is all about arranging your life in a specific way so that you're within their own reach. And with those people, it is very important to be firm on your words. And you can tell me, oh Stas, I've tried to explain myself so many times to that person. I've tried to establish my boundaries so many times for them. And by the way, this is the situation, this is the relationship that I cannot possibly leave, because narcissist is my family member and I cannot just not see them, right? But they just do not believe my own words. They just do not trust me. Understand that words carry an energetic meaning. And a lot of times, it is not about the words that you say. It is about the beliefs that you hold within you. If I was invited to TED Talk and I started speaking about Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain, whatever it is, right? And I would do excessive research on that, like I would learn everything about it. If I do not work in this field, if I do not have a strong understanding that comes from the very physical experience of being in this area, then people will not trust my words. I mean, they might trust half of it, but I will not be as trustworthy as somebody who has experienced it in comparison. You see what I mean? You need to have a physical experience with the things that you're about to say to that person. You need to reach this full certainty and understand that it is not really about the words that you say, it is about the energetic meaning that they carry. If you reach this full confidence, as I explained it before, if you're certain in yourself, if you build the strength to the repetitive coming across difficult situations in your life, then the words that you speak will be powerful enough, no matter what you say. Because when you think of yourself as a strong person, when you're fully certain in this concept and belief, then there is this energy that you're carrying that makes other people listen to you. If you think of yourself as somebody who is worthy of being listened to, of being heard, then other people will reciprocate. They will reciprocate to the energy that you create around yourself. And this is how you deal with people who do not hear you. You first focus on yourself. You focus on building this vessel through the repetitive hard situations in your life, becoming stronger, and then with the full firmness, stating your beliefs. And if even this doesn't help, then perhaps it is a lesson in your life that is there to teach you that sometimes you could do everything. Sometimes you can jump over yourself. But yeah, people will not change. And this is the truth that you need to admit. Sometimes this is the way it is. Misunderstandings just happen in order to remind you that not only everything is fleeting and everybody comes and goes, but there are just people who you will never match with. And this is yet another step, a reminder to you to stop acting with the purpose of pleasing somebody and start focusing on what you actually want to get out of this interaction, because this is not selfish. If you're a compassionate human being, you can focus on your needs, but also understand the perspective of another person. And that is the best state to operate from. And letting go truly is the hardest part. How hard it is to say to somebody, it's okay that you disagree with me. You know, I've worked extensively on myself to build this point of view, and I've done so much research. I've done so much introspective work to reach this conclusion. And you know nothing about this field, but you just blindly disagree with me just because you decided so. And no words of mine can ever change your judgment. How hard it is to say okay to this person and to move on. But again, how do we handle it? Through the state of certainty. By going back to the source, to ourselves, and reminding ourselves that I've done the work for myself and this is yet another test on my way. It is very hard to let people go, to let misunderstandings slide. But if you give reaction for reaction, that there will be another reaction created. Because energy does not come and appear from nowhere and does not disappear into nothing. Energy is always there. If somebody shouts at you, if somebody criticizes you, there is absolutely no point in shouting back at them. Absolutely no point. Because think about how much anger it triggers in them. Do you like being shouted at? Even when you shout at somebody, that somebody shouts back at you, it even makes you fire up more. By shouting, you're not making your voice clear, because it is very focused. The act of shouting is very focused on the physical dimension. It's all about trying to make ourselves loud. And you should have learned by now that your expectations are almost never met in this life, because it almost never goes your way. That is the truth. In order to be heard, we need to be quiet and speak with purpose. That is the only way. By responding with quietness to the shouting that other people give you, you create respect for yourself. You start being seen as the person who can handle it, not as a people pleaser, not as somebody who bears this and just sits in a corner as a little scared rat. No, you can take the shout of another person, and with your silence, you affirm your strong position. I hear you, and your reaction does not influence me because I'm above it. And yes, it sounds selfish, but you are above it. If you're able to handle the shouting in a good way, then this is yet another test for you to pass, and you have passed it. Because by responding with quiet calmness to the shouting of that person, you give them the space to be introspective about themselves, about what they have just done and said to you. And oftentimes, when we let things slide with the right intention of just not letting it slide for the purpose of avoiding discomfort, but of just letting the person express themselves without letting ourselves be influenced by the negative energy, we give that space to that person to analyze themselves. And a lot of times I would receive apology back, like maybe in longer periods of time I would have to wait. But yeah, when I didn't raise my voice back, when I just took what another person did to me, and I quietly thought to myself, I trust in the universe to handle this, because this is not my responsibility to take revenge on people. This is not my responsibility to respond back with negativity. It's not really my responsibility. It was their personal choice. But why should their personal choice influence my personal choices? When you realize that the personal choices of other people should not be an influence to you, should not trigger a certain behavior within you, then you give that person a space to learn, grow, develop, and perhaps at some point in the future apologize to you. But perhaps they never will, and that is okay. Give people space, accept them, have compassion, accept them for who they are, and if you do not like it, leave it. But it is not your job to fix people, and it is not your job to fix a misunderstanding when you're not given the time to be listened to. When somebody thinks that you're not allowed to be heard, do you really need that person in your life? And why are you so triggered by them not listening to you? Perhaps it is a great sign that you will not match with each other. Because why would you want to be with a person and in the life of a person who is so focused on themselves they can never let their judgment be changed by the truth that is spoken by another person? You would ideally want the people in your life who understand you, who hear you, who are able to change their perspective when they're in the wrong. And so work on all of the qualities that you want to see in other people within yourself. Make sure that you have everything that you want to receive from the world. And once you're sure, once you're certain, every misunderstanding becomes a blessing in disguise. And that is fucking beautiful. On this note, I'm ending this episode. I hope you liked it. It was very positive. I hope you liked the new setting, the decorations of my room. If you like this episode, please DM me with any inquiries, any ideas for the future episodes, any questions, any ideas for discussion at Blue Hour Pod on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me on my YouTube channel, video episodes exclusively on YouTube and Spotify. For any professional inquiries, email me at lutanstas320@gmail.com. You can check out my portfolio. In the description of this podcast, you can hire me for videography work and services. And I'll speak to you next week. Bye.